Guess what, everyone? Got a new tent. Oh, nice label on the front. Yeah, as expected, it's a fairly chunky piece of kit. So according to the box, it says this one has come with a footprint inside. So I imagine this will be pretty heavy. Yeah, 3.1 kilos inclusive. This looks like the footprint. Let's take that out and measure it for weight. So the footprint is just over 320 grams, so take that off the weight of the tent. There's another 100 grams gone. So basically, having removed everything you don't need, it is 2.7 kilos, including the stuff sack, pegs, poles, etc. So all in all, a pretty comprehensive package of bits and pieces. 3 poles, 16 pegs, a very large tube of silicone rubber sealant, spare guy, a spare elastic puller, footprint, instruction manual. The one thing I would say that seems to be missing from it, which would maybe something you would suggest, is the fabric patches to do repairs on the tent. I don't see anything immediately, but it might be tucked in one of the stuff sacks, so we'll have a look in a minute. Right, let's get this thing up and get a look at it. So it has a little guy line retentioner here, a little elastic loop to hold them together, which stops all this getting tangled, which is really quite common on a tent where you've got clips and a pole system. The guy lines can end up in an absolute shambles, so it's good to see you can retain them tidily inside that elastic. And the pegs are these super strong, fairly long versions with a extra ribbing on the sides, which just makes them really very hard to bend. Actually, I was quite impressed with these the last time on the previous Vern one. And for extra security, again like a Hilleberg system and many other tents these days, you can now pull the tape round the poles before you actually tie out the guy line. Also, what I've just noticed is these guy line runners, I think actually are luminous, so should be glow in the dark. So again, at the ends of the tent, wrap the tape right round both poles for extra security and strength, and then just guy it out from there. A little hook here, like a mitten hook, which then allows this vent, make sure that it can't collapse in the wind and will retain its position and its shape for the airflow. So that's it with all 16 pegs in place. I've actually gone for separate guys here, but just to show you, if you're using the 16 and you may want to use these midpoint pegging points on the doors, just here, then in that case you'll be a bit short of 2 pegs. So I've gone for a slightly different setup at this end, but it just shows you different ways you can guy it out. But yeah, looking very nice so far. Let's get inside and get a look. I've tensioned up the inner so you can adjust it at all 4 corners just to get more tension on it. Again, it seems to use luminous zip pullers. That's quite smart. It also seems to have some form of puller here to adjust the floor. I'll just have a wee muck around with that and see if we can get that to work correctly. So it's nice and wide. Or I think you can adjust it to give yourself more vestibule room for cooking, but actually it looks fairly generous at the moment, so I don't see an issue. Impressed immediately before I get in with the inner space. This looks pretty large actually inside, but let's jump in and check for sure. So the door tucks into its own pocket there just now. I don't know if it's actually designed to do that. Yeah, it certainly looks like it should. So yeah, massive door entry, and you can open the tent on both sides. So I can see why the door has to be this wide. It just gives you a really nice choice of, depending on where the wind and weather's coming. in terms of which way you get into the tent. So it's a nice design feature in the Vern one. In terms of inner height, it's actually fairly low again, but easier to get in and out than the original Vern one. So the actual coming in and out the door didn't bother me. I'm not sitting on a mat yet, but I would say my head is just about rubbing. So it's fairly low profile. And behind me here you'll see we have a drying line again in that fairly chunky 2 or 3 mil guy line type material. And a couple of pockets above me, just above where you sleep at your head and foot end. Nicely tucked out the way. Plus this pocket here, once the door is shut, you could use that. There's also another pocket on this side where again you could just tuck some gear. But yeah, it feels quite wide. I quite like it. I'll get a mat in and we'll check this out properly. And you can top and yeah, so you can open the zips from the top for venting, extra ventilation, and for when you're cooking inside. But yeah, so far so good. My initial impressions, and I had a Hilleberg Soulo a long time ago, is that the Soulo is probably higher but shorter in terms of depth. So a bit more tight in your vestibule, probably a bit more tight in the interior as well. This feels quite airy and spacious. Okay, so I've put a Thermarest Neo Air X Therm in, that's that one. And I don't know how easily you can see me, let me just put you up a bit here. Hopefully you can see that, but I'm 5'8". My head is just touching slightly. It's not bothering me at all, but I think you'd have to consider it's maybe have to stoop slightly if you're over 6 feet or so. There's a foot and head end vent here which you can unzip and it takes it down to the mesh. But I don't think you can access the outer vent from here. I'll just double check for you. Yeah, as I suspected, it's a mesh inner there and then a mesh vent on the outside as well, which is good to keep bugs out. But you can't access the outer vent from inside the inner unless you go around the edge. And the same again at the head end. And there's your pocket just above your head. Pocket above your foot. Pocket to the side. 2 triangular pockets at the back. And a pocket where I've stashed the door at the moment, but you can also tie it back here. Absolute tons of room for storing packs, for cooking. And above you there you've got double zip vents. One hooded on the left and one just a normal vent, unhooded. Thermarest Neo Air tucked down to the foot end, and I would say you've got 1.5 to 2 feet ahead of the head, so there should be no problem for taller users when lying down. Relatively steep wall above your face as well, so shouldn't feel too claustrophobic even at either end. So it has got quite a nice kind of geodesic inner shape about it, which is quite roomy. So you should have no real problems getting change, moving around and spending a lot of time inside it. So as you can see, you've got a choice of a full solid polyester door, and you can also open up the mesh part of it as well. Let's do that. This just shows you here, you can unzip this. You can have a completely mesh door for warmer climates. Nice yellow interior fabric as well, a la Hilleberg, so it's quite cheerful inside. I'm looking at construction generally. Everything looks pretty good as far as I can tell. One little thing I did notice though, however, and I'll just make you aware of it, is there's a bad bit of stitching here where it's gone out of line and they haven't caught it in correctly here. That's the only stitching or QC problem that I've noticed. Yeah, so with both doors open, absolutely massive. Huge amount of viewing area, cooking area, and just being able to sit still under the cover out of the rain. You can see the vinyl reinforcement that runs right along the fly sheet at all the hook points, so it spreads the pressure out across the fly sheet rather than concentrating it in one strap area. Very similar again to Hilleberg, I would imagine. Right around the whole structure. There's also some reflective details just on the main vent there and at the vents at the foot and the head end as well, just for finding the thing. And the poles are colour coded with matching colour coded sleeves. So very simple to pull together. Everything's adjustable. I haven't done it, but the footprint can be clipped in and the inner can be tensioned out just to make sure it's nice and taut regardless of pitch. And just as per most tents these days, if it's a double, an inner and an outer, it's just a loop and a hoop system for detaching the inner, taking that out and storing it dry when you're on the move. There's a couple of features actually which I would like to have seen on the tent. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to have a buckle to stop zip creep. which is a bit of a strange oversight to me, because I'd imagine this is under quite a lot of stress on both sides. I'm absolutely loaded with a cold at the moment, but hoping to get out very shortly. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this first impression of the new VERN 1. Yeah, it looks very impressive, looks like a very strong tent. Could be a real Soulo rival, and at round about probably half the price. I think this comes in landed in the UK at just over £500. I'll put it on screen, which seems like a pretty good bargain, and I really do think this could be a really big seller. Yeah, it ticks a lot of boxes for a very strong 4-season tent. Yes, it's a wee bit heavier, but the people who are used to carrying Soulo weights, it's just comparable. But I would say it definitely has more room about it, much more airy feeling. Nice low profile, seems very strong, lots and lots of guying and peg points. So what's not to like? Yeah, let's get out and use it, and I'll do a wee trip report on it and update you shortly. But thank you again for watching, and if you get any questions, just drop me a line below. This will stay up for a day or two just to test it for waterproofing before I seam seal it. I'd rather not seam seal it if I don't have to. So thank you for watching, and see you out there. Cheers just now.